Good day, everyone. Welcome to week 3, the first session for Epidemiology HA207. During the first week, we have established the conceptual foundation, the definition of epidemiology, and other key concepts that would give you an overview on how epidemiology is applied in hospital administration. And then last week, we have discussed the various methodologies or studies under the descriptive and analytic epidemiology. So um, you're now comfortable, you should be now comfortable knowing how to read the basic rates and ratios based on the type of methodologies and researches that are published or presented. So today, we bring it now to a more practical setting of epidemiology, particularly in the hospital setting. So by the end of this session, you should be able to do these 5 things. The first one is you apply these frameworks to the decision making in the hospital. You would be able to look at a hospital problem and immediately reach for the right epidemiologic tool that will help you guide for the solution of that particular problem. Second is how surveillance data informs the hospital in regards to the planning and resource allocation. While surveillance is um, primarily for public health agencies, these data can also be used by the hospital, and the hospital can also generate this surveillance data. And you should be able to use the data that you can get from this surveillance various surveillance methods. The third one is identify the health indicators used in the hospital level decision making. So these are the numbers that your higher bosses, the CEO, the board, and and also the regulators care about. And you need to speak that language fluently. The fourth one is you able to analyze a case scenario involving a hospital-acquired infection outbreak. So that would be your activity for this session. And lastly is to align institutional vision with population health and epidemiologic needs. A hospital that ignores the health profile of its community is not truly serving that community. We will talk about what it means to be an epidemiologic informed institution. So this would be our overview. So again, we'll start with some conceptual grounding, like what exactly is hospital-based epidemiology and how does it differ from what you may have studied in public health setting. And then we will move to hospital-based surveillance systems. This is the machinery that makes the hospital epidemiology work. And after that, I will give you the case scenario in which you have to ponder after this lecture, and we will close it by tying all it back to decision making. So think of this as the 4 parts. So we'll start broadly from the concept and frameworks, and then progressively zero in or specify to surveillance systems, and using that uh, to answer particular situations that might happen in the hospital setting. So let us define first what is hospital-based epidemiology. So it is the application of these principles within the healthcare institutions in order to, these are some, identify and control healthcare-associated infections, monitor patterns of disease and adverse events among patients, guide clinical and administrative decision-making, and evaluate quality of care and patient safety outcomes. So, why does this matter for you as a student of the hospital administration course? Because as administrators, I think you're already an administrator, not just future managers. You will be justifying budget line items to your higher bosses, the board, and the CEO. You will be designing staffing models. You need to write certain institutional policies. And also, you have to report to the regulatory bodies, the Department of Health, PhilHealth, and other accrediting agencies. So every single one of these tasks is made better And some of them are only possible if you are knowledgeable in the epidemiologic data. So again, we'll go back to the frameworks that we have discussed during the prior sessions, but now we will revisit them through the lens of a hospital setting. So again, very important to determine the person, place, and time. In the hospital setting, the person means who is getting sick because that's the usual clientele of a hospital. The age, sex, comorbidities, the demographic information that you get about the patients that caters or that goes into the hospital. It's also important to determine the place, meaning which particular ward or unit in which most cases the hospital receives. So is it the surgical floor, the OB ward, or are there particular incidents or cases that cluster around a specific area of the hospital? And then finally, time. Um, is there a temporal clustering or is there a spiking of case in a particular shift, for example, or it is based on a particular introduction of new policies, um, a particular batch of medications given. So there are so many instances wherein time is a very important factor that you have to consider or uh, account account for. The second is the epidemiologic triad. Again, the interaction of the host, the agent, and the environment. Um, for example, in a hospital-acquired infection scenario, so the host is your patient. The underlying immunity, comorbidities, whether they're post-operative or vulnerable, they are very important. Those are important factors that you need to understand. The agent, definitely the infection, the pathogen, what organism it is, how virulent, is there antibiotic resistance? So you have to also determine that. And finally, the environment. How are the hygiene protocols? Is it being implemented properly by the staff? How is the staffing ratios occurs in that particular unit? You have to look also the other physical systems or structures in that particular area, like for example, the ventilation system or even the layout of the unit. And then the third would be the web of causation. So it is the most sophisticated among the three. So as we have discussed, a particular disease almost never has a single cause. So it has a web of interacting risk factors. Like for example, there could be understaffing that leads to rushed hand hygiene, and this leads to cross-contamination, which will lead to the outbreak of these particular patients in a particular unit or ward. So the web of causation tells you where to pull the thread in where is the most accessible, the highest impact point of intervention. So it guides you on what would be your response or at what point you can also intervene and solve a particular dilemma. So now let's talk about surveillance. So hospital-based surveillance systems are structured systems that collect, analyze, and report data for action. The last word, action, is the most important part. Data without action is just storage. Surveillance without response is just bookkeeping. So it's very important that you just don't collect data, but act on based on what the data tells you. So in the hospital, there are at least five major surveillance components. It could differ from one institution from another. There could be more, but at least these are the basic surveillance components. The first one, I think this is universal in all hospitals, would be the infection control committee. So this is the institutional body that is responsible for tracking hospital-acquired infection rates, surgical site infections, catheter-associated UTI, central line-associated bloodstream infections, even ventilator or hospital associated pneumonia. So it takes this data and translate it into protocols. So whether there's isolation procedures that are needed to be instituted, are there any staff training requirements, or there could be procurement decisions. Of course, this committee is very prominent, particularly during the pandemic period. But even in periods of there is an increase in infection rates, uh, because infections are very common, and there's usually a spike of incidences of a particular infection that leads to hospital admissions. The infection control committee should be very active in managing any problems related to outbreaks of infection, whether it's a community acquired or hospital acquired. They're also involved in the reporting of the antibiogram, which is a collated data based on the culture studies that were done in the hospital. So whether it's a urine culture, blood culture, or even the sputum culture, the infection control committee is also responsible to report that um, to the physicians and the other stakeholders in the hospital, because that would also be important in guiding um, antibiotic antibiotic recommendations for particular or for specific type of infections. And then there is the um, PIDSR. So this is the Philippine Integrated Disease Surveillance and Response System. So based on the Republic Act 1133-2, the hospitals are mandated to report specific notifiable diseases to the DOH Epidemiologic Bureau. So this is mandatory, and as an administrator, you are accountable for the timeliness and accuracy of these reports. Third is the clinical quality indicators, so readmission rates, mortality rates, length of stay. So these are indicators that drive your quality improvement process. If your 30-day readmission is high, something is failing in your discharge process. If your average length of stay is increasing, your resource utilization is taking a hit. So this is a very important part of the department, part of the hospital, that looks into improving the processes or the operations of the hospital. The fourth is the pharmacy. So this has certain overlap with the infection control, but usually there could be a separate department, no, that would handle the as I mentioned earlier, the antibiogram or the antimicrobial resistance patterns. But the pharmacy is also important with regards to tracking of the adverse drug events, not just looking into the antibiotic use and resistance patterns. So they're more on the drug safety and monitoring of the adverse drug events uh, among uh, among patients given a particular medication. And also they're also in charge of the it's the they ensure the availability of certain medications. And then finally, the electronic medical record. So looking into the admission and discharge data. So it's very important that you have a good um, record system to look into the diagnostic trends, ward occupancy, and other clinical information. So this is a management data that you can help monitor in terms of the patients at that particular moment in your hospital. Unfortunately, not all hospitals in the country have have electronic medical record system yet. Some still use the the paper and pen record system, but still that's still part of the record keeping that is very important in the hospital setting. So let's look into the So this is the activity that you have to um, ponder into after this lecture. So this is a scenario. So over a 2 week period, there's a 300-bed secondary hospital. The surgical ward reports a cluster of 12 post-operative wound infections. These cases involve patients who underwent abdominal surgery. The infection control nurse flags the cluster to the hospital administration. So now you want to think through these three questions. So now using that person, place, time framework, how would you characterize the cluster? The second would be what surveillance data sources within the hospital would you immediately access? And lastly, what epidemiologic steps would you take as a hospital administrator? So please submit a report and we will discuss this probably on Saturday as part of the discussion of this case. And I will please submit your answers Friday night so that I can go through your answers with regards to this scenario. So this is our fourth activity. So now, as a guide, I would give you a an idea on how to walk through the steps of investigating hospital outbreaks. So first one is you verify the diagnosis. But before you do, while they would say there is um, surgical post-op surgical infections, you have to be sure that this really meet the consistent clinical definition of a post-surgical infection. Is there fever, purulent discharge, or a positive wound culture? So are these actual infections or are some of these cases are just mere inflammatory reaction or documentation errors? So you have to be sure that this, for example, in our case, that these 12 individuals really have a post-operative infection. The second one is, again, you determine what are the demographics, the person, the place, the time, and the clinical criteria. So was this what was the time period wherein the infection occurred in relation to the date of the procedure? What are the age distribution of these patients? Any particular gender predisposition or any other comorbidities? So third one is you um, construct the descriptive epidemiology. Now you have to organize it and make a summarized data on the basic information that you get from the second step. You can present it using tables, graphs, uh, whatever statistical tool that you can make it easily understood by the other members of the hospital. Fourth one, now that you have presented the data uh, and analyzed it, you can now generate hypotheses on what could be the most likely source. For example, is the operating table contaminated? Was there a staff of the hospital that could have been the carrier? Is there an inadequate sterilization? So you now look into the possible causes, in this case of the um, the post-operative surgical infection. And then, based now on your hypothesis, you can now try to implement control measures. So you do not wait for the perfect evidence. You act on your best hypothesis while you continue to investigate. So do you need to isolate particular patients? You need to reinforce hand hygiene, review sterile technique throughout the surgical staff. So you have certain policies or steps that you can already do as an hospital administrator. So what will you do? That would depend on the hypothesis that you've generated and the data that was given or presented to you. And then finally, communicate and report. So you report it to the infection control committee, brief the hospital administrators. If that particular infection is part of the mandatory reporting under the Republic Act 1133-2 or the any memorandum from the DOH, you should file the report. So internally, communicate with the surgical staff in the surgical department, not to assign blame, but to enlist their cooperation in the investigation and in the control measures. So these are some examples, no, of that how does surveillance data translate to hospital management decisions. So these are some of the examples. The first one is, what if there is an increasing hospital-acquired infection rates in the ICU? So the action is not to hire a new infection control nurse and hope. The action is either you procure additional personal protective equipment, you review the cleaning protocols of the beds and the ICU. You also reinforce staff training. So those are budget items, human resource decisions, and training investments that would be part of the administrator's domain. Second, for example, especially now that we're in the rainy season, we are expecting spikes in dengue admissions. This is predictable in our calendar. Although I mentioned previously that there's also dengue cases now even during the summer. But still, the spike in dengue admissions happen during the rainy months. So if you're an epidemiologic informed hospital, you do not react in surprise because we have expected a certain trend of the increase in incidence of dengue infections. So you can do planning on in terms of the bed capacity for dengue cases. You coordinate with the local government unit in controlling possible vector population, meaning the cleaning of the surroundings, no, to avoid the breeding of mosquitoes in the areas, and alert the DOH. That's very important in order to make a complete health picture and be ready for a surge of dengue cases in your community. Another scenario would be if you look into the data, there is high readmission rates. So it tells you that either the patients come back within 30 days, and that might be a particular problem in the quality in terms of the process, the way handling the patients. So you have to do a discharge planning review and enhance post-discharge follow-up. So do you need case managers? Is telemedicine would be a good option for this? And this should be decisions here should be based on epidemiologic data as well. And then finally, if you would in the biogram, so this is the antimicrobial resistance pattern. There's an increase in the gram-negative organisms. So the action here is you should implement antibiotic stewardship and restrict the carbapenem use without a consult by the infectious disease specialist. So this is a clinical governance decision, and the administrator's role is very important in this particular scenario. So this time, let's look into specific indicators that you have to internalize as hospital leaders. So the first one is utilization indicators. How is your bed occupancy rate? So this means the percentage of beds that are filled on any given day. I think the DOH benchmark is about 85%. Below that, that means you're underutilizing your resources. Above that, you might bleed into a capacity crisis. And then the average length of stay. How long the patients are staying in the hospital? Is it higher than the benchmark or lower? Um, a higher length of stay, meaning there could be discharge delays or there could be some case mix issues. So you have to look into that. Bed turnover rate. So how many patients does each bed serve in a year? And then finally, yung emergency room throughput and waiting times. This is very important because emergency room is the so-called frontliner of the hospital. So this also acts as the main PR because this is usually where the patients usually go first, besides the clinic. So it's very important that you have to have a shorter waiting time and be able to attend to these patients, whether okay, sorry for that delay. But so we've mentioned the utilization indicators. Next would be the morbidity and mortality indicators, such as the hospital mortality rate. Not just looking into the numbers, but what would be the specific types of diseases? What are the most common diseases that led to the death of that patient in the hospital? Case fatality rate. So that means for particular illness, for example, a myocardial infarction, how many percentage of those admitted with myocardial infarction dies in the hospital? Presence of surgical site infection, but very important also would be the maternal and neonatal mortality rates. This because this indicator is closely tracked by the DOH and is very indicator that's usually being monitored in terms of for accreditation and hospital licensing purposes. And then finally, there are the quality and safety indicators, the healthcare associated infection rates, medication error, adverse event rates, readmission rates, patient satisfaction scores. Because the most hospitals now give survey to the patients before discharge, and they would ask how are the various services served these particular patients and their relatives. So that also helps in improving the service that is given by a medical center or hospital. So in the end, what we want to to establish here is not just acting upon your in terms of the situations or scenarios in the hospital, but it's very important also that the hospital needs to align its vision with its surrounding community. Okay, as mentioned, a hospital that does not measure, analyze, and respond to the health needs of its community or its surrounding environment is not truly serving that community. It's, for example, your hospital in Cabanatuan, you're not serving the the people of Makati. So why do you need to get the data in Makati? You have to align your vision with the people around you because most likely or almost all of your cases would come from the that area or that community or for obvious reasons. So um it's very important that the hospitals should not be a reactive mode, meaning it reacts to patient demands as it comes. it plans based on just the last year's admission data. And then it's very important that yung clinical and administrative arms does not operate separately. They should share data and they should also have aligning goals as well. But it's very important to be an epidemiologically informed hospital. This means you anticipate disease burden using surveillance trends. If you know that there is a spike of dengue cases August or September, you have to plan ahead, even by June or July, on what you, in terms of what would be your hospital operations adjust to this particular situation. And then usually in during the New Year celebration, there are firecracker related injuries. So increased mobilization in the emergency room, ensuring the availability of surgical instruments and the other medications that you usually use around this holiday season should be well prepared. It's very important that you plan proactively using these population health indicators, either from the local government units, the DOH regional office, but you can still use national health surveys. So you integrate this data across the departments, not just to the clinical team, but also to the finance team, the human resources, and the strategy team, reading all of this data together and coming up with solutions that won't conflict with one another. So this should be the model that you should aspire to, an epidemiologically informed institution. So hopefully that is something that this subject will guide you. So as a key takeaway, first, epidemiology is operational in hospitals. You might not like you you might not like the subject, you might not like doing the numbers, but you need these numbers because these are tools that you as a hospital administrator use daily, from infection control to strategic planning. Surveillance is the engine of hospital safety. You link data from the patient records, laboratories, and notifiable disease reports into something actionable. And you have to, based on the data, you need not just to formulate solutions or look into the possible cause of certain problems in the hospital, but to plan ahead uh, in cases of potential scenarios in the coming months or even during the coming years. So it's important again to go back dun sa person, place, time, the web of triad, and the web of the causation, because these are very important frameworks when analyzing whether it's an healthcare associated infection cluster or if you're looking at long-term trends, in particularly yung mga non-communicable chronic diseases. So these health indicators drive decisions. The hospital healthcare associated infection rates, the bed capacity, the bed turnover, length of stay, case fatality rate. These are not just numbers. These are the language that you as a hospital leader should communicate. So in our next session, we'll go deeper into the health indicators and policy linkages. And we will look into also the community-based epidemiology. So looking into the epidemiologic curve. So thank you, and I will see you in session 2 of HA 207.